All right. So we are we're in the middle of a series in Matthew, and we're going to finish the Beatitudes today. All right. I almost did it. I thought about it. I got halfway through, and I go, I think we could probably stretch this out, but we're not stretching it out. We're going to run through it. We're going to hit it hard. But what you need to know, if you haven't been with us through this series, what you need to know are two really crucial things about the Sermon on the Mount. And so the Sermon on the Mount, remember, it is like it's the expectations of the kingdom of God, right? That Jesus gives us all this explanation of what it looks like to be in rhythm with God's kingdom and living it out here on earth. And then about the Beatitudes, remember that blessed or blessed, depending on where are my blessed people? Where's my blessed people? Are you, okay, right? So the rest of you are like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So there's, so with blessed, it means that God is for you, right? That God is for you. And so we've been walking through every single one of the 8 Beatitudes, and we're going to get to the last ones here. But let's read the whole thing together. Matthew chapter 5, verse 1. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. And after he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And our text today begins with, Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And so when I was in Sunday school, who grew up going to Sunday school? All right, yeah, I went to Sunday school. And do you remember, I don't know if this was a Methodist thing, but it was definitely a Church of God thing, that it was, you wanted Jesus to live in your heart, right? It was like, you got to have Jesus live in your heart. Now, the problem is that it's like an 8-year-old, and a big fan of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right? You just kind of imagine just a little mini Jesus kind of running through your aortic valve, you know what I mean? But it's not really what it is, right? But heart, the Greek heart is cardia, which is where we actually get, right, cardiac from. But it actually means the human center, right? When you get down to the Greek of it, it's this human center, and we understood that there was something about the human condition that we're aware of that's going on inside of us. And then pure, right? So we know what heart is, right? This is the human center. And then pure. Anyone a metal worker? Are there any metal workers? I figured not so much. Oh, you are not. My son raised his hand. So when you make metal, whether it could be steel or whatever you're going to build, you actually combine, right? You melt down different metals, and then you combine them, and you get a new metal that's specific for what you want. So I was looking through what pure meant, and actually, my battery died, but this isn't going to be good. I use way too many hand motions. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'll end up tossing this thing on accident into the crowd. But we'll give it a shot for this second while we wait. Singular focus. I'm raising 3 teenagers right now. And so I've been teaching them how to drive, right? And I've got one has their license. I have one with their temps. And then I have one that will be getting their temps in like 6 months. And so here's the thing. One of the things that you have to teach kids, and really adults, is that where you look, you go. Right? Where you look, you go. If you're staring at something on the side of the road, you will be sharing its space. All right? That you're going to head that way. Thank you so much. So that's why when there's an accident on the side of the road and you're driving down, you're like, I don't see the accident. I don't see the accident. I don't see the accident. And then it's on the other side of the road. Why is that? It's because everyone driving this way is looking, right? They're looking, and so they have to slow down because they know, and we know, that you go where you look. I mean, think about Peter when he was, remember Peter when he's walking on water? Like, he goes, hey, Jesus, command me to come out to you. Command me to come out to you. And he goes, and then what happens? It says in Matthew 14:30, but when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Because what? His focus changed. He began to focus on everything else. And so there's this idea, this pure in heart, this singular focus is not for him, it's for us. That's why Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, right? It's like we've got to align ourselves with what God is doing. And so it's like aim at the greatest possible good. And so listen, here's the pure in heart. The pure in heart are those who are unshakable in their aim for the kingdom of God be made manifest here on earth. That's what the pure in heart are. They're focused on God's kingdom. They're singular. It's, I want God, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Your kingdom come. It's like, that's my focus. That's the pure in heart. Verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So this one's interesting because I don't know that when Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, he's talking to some of the people in that crowd. I don't know that they were all thrilled about the idea of peace because they wanted revolution, right? Some of them, I mean, there's a zealot. There's literally Simon the Zealot is really one of the disciples, right? He's like, there's like they want some of this, but Jesus is, remember, he's giving us a different look at what it means to be a nation or a kingdom. Jesus does not only, so he says, blessed are the peacemakers. So here's the thing, it's not even blessed are the peacekeepers. It's not even blessed are the peace wanters, right? It's blessed are the peacemakers, right? So there's an action involved in this. Like it's not passive, it's active. And so we are people as kingdom people or Jesus followers, like we are called to go into conflict. That's what a peacemaker does. A peacemaker moves into conflict spaces and tries to bring about some kind of peace and some kind of righteousness. And so we're called to move into those spaces. And listen, I hate politics. Hate, it's a strong word. And here's my issue with politics. I don't have like an extreme view. I just don't agree with almost anyone on everything, you know what I mean? So there's like no one that I feel like you and me agree on everything, right? I'm just kind of in the middle a lot. So like I don't have a lot of extreme thoughts one way or the other. But it's hard to have an honest, open dialogue with people that name call and mock and do all these things. It's difficult. And that's definitely what you get online, all right? But those things are difficult. But listen, we're involved in 2 wars, at least right now, like major conflicts. And children and women are being killed all over the world right now. And the reason I feel safe bringing a little bit of this politics stuff up right now is because it's bipartisan. Like both sides are in this. And so, listen, war makes money, makes America money. And when America is making money, then people keep their jobs, right? And so that's a lot of how some of this stuff works. But I think what governments are missing is that we all get to see what happens now on social media. Like we see the injustice. It's not just a story. It's not we're hearing from, like we're seeing live footage of actual battle and destruction. And listen, I'm not a politician, so I've not spent hours trying to figure out how to fix conflict. You know, I have no military experience, right? I don't know how to stop a war. I don't know any of that. Like I'm just a theologian, right? It's like, but here's what I know, is that the Bible, unfortunately, is also full of war and pain. And the church history is full of war and pain. And it shouldn't be that way. Like that's not the call that Jesus has on his people. And so we are able to, and a lot of that issue comes from not being able to read our own Bibles a while ago, right? But now we all get to see what Jesus said. And so when we look at something like peacemaker, and then we look at what our world is doing, goes, listen, this isn't right. Peace wanting isn't sufficient, I think, as followers of Jesus. Peace wanting is not sufficient. He opens this idea of what the kingdom of God looks like. He opens it with peace. Like it should be a place of peace. And listen, regardless of what side you're on, it's governments against governments. And people end up being pawns that are used to play a lot of their games. And listen, a 6-year-old girl was recorded sitting in a car staring at a tank and made a phone call for rescue. It took about 3 hours for them to get there, and I think it was 15 minutes too late. The ambulance drivers and helpers were killed. The little girl's family was killed. She was killed. Hind Rajab. I think that's how you say her name. Hind Rajab. Listen, I don't care how many people want to talk about numbers and all this. Like, if one little girl has to stare down a tank, it's too many. Like, we're called to move into these spaces and be peacemakers in these situations. And here's what's interesting. In Jesus' day, the emperor was called, had multiple names. And so one of the titles of the emperor was peacemaker. And one of the titles was also Son of God. The emperor could be called these things. And so I love what Jesus does, right? He goes, you know how the emperor is called peacemaker? Let me flip that upside down. You, the people. Because listen, kings can declare war, presidents can declare war, but if the people don't go, you can't have it. And so he says, no, the people are peacemakers, not the governments, not these leaders. You, as kingdom people, are the ones that decide whether peace happens or not. And so you be a peacemaker into whatever degree that you can be that, right? We can't all fix a war, but we can find individual spaces within our world, within our families, within our lives, where they may be chaos and it may be out of control, but we can step into those situations and not raise the level of conflict, but bring it down. Like that's part of our job. And so in verse 10 it says, blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So, real quick on this one. This does not mean You are blessed when people persecute you because you lack tact and are a jerk. Right? Right? That's not what this is. Like, just because you're, like, so if you're just on a box with a megaphone and a sign, like turn or burn, and you're yelling bad things about people that you don't understand or don't like, listen, you should expect, right, to get some heat for that. Like, and that's not what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is not talking about that. He's talking about people that are generally, because listen, we don't see this as much in America, right? Because we're not a theocracy, right? So we in fact, we try to be the opposite of that. We don't always do a great job, but we try to separate church and state to some degree. So we don't see a lot of the conflict when someone becomes a Christian or stops becoming a Christian. But listen, in India, this past year, multiple churches were burnt to the ground, right? And so, like, that's real persecution, not someone sitting in my pew, right? Right? That's real persecution, like people coming out. And so Jesus, he ends this whole Beatitudes thing, and this was so interesting. He ends his opening statement letting us know that it won't be easy, right? That and the reward is not in this life, right? There was an understanding, especially early on in Christianity, that being a Christian is going to cost you something. That it's not simple, it's not easy, that it's going to there is no version of Christianity that doesn't cost you something. But the payoff is not here, but in life everlasting. And so we stand up for those who can't, right? And we take the heat for them, and then we shine light into dark places, and you will experience pushback. Because dark places don't want lit up. Dark places don't want to know, don't want the world to know that they're causing injustice, that they're causing pain. Right? Those dark places don't want lit up. And so when you shine the light of Christ into these spaces, there's going to be pushback. But look at all the Beatitudes. If you look at the opposites, this was so interesting. I just saw this yesterday. If you look at the Beatitudes and look at their opposites, it's a list of grossness that none of us would really want in our lives. The opposite of the poor in spirit would be the powerful or the elite. The opposite of those who mourn are those who are proud. The opposite of meek is one who uses force at every opportunity. The opposite of those who hunger and thirst for righteousness are those who hunger and thirst for their own kingdom. And so if you aren't merciful, you're cold, you're cruel. If you aren't pure in heart, you're divided and focused on yourself. And if you're not a peacemaker, you're a warmonger. And so some of the commentaries said, well, it sounds like a bit of masculine toxicity or toxic masculinity. And I thought, it kind of looks like Rome. See, Jesus isn't ready to just come out and say that Rome needs overturned, right? He's not ready to lead that revolt, not ready to guide it. But what he does is he actually takes the very characteristics of the people in power, the people in charge, and then says, we're going to be different. We're not going to be like Rome. This is what the kingdom looks like. This is what my kingdom should look like, and it's the opposite. And so he's actually kind of talking trash to Rome without saying enough to get in trouble, right? I really wish I could have been at conference these last few weeks. Kingdom kind of being flipped upside down and aligning with what Jesus is called us to be. A historic moment for the church that will be looked back on forever. Forever will be looked back on. And we've been promoting this, like we've been living this way here at LUMCs, and this is the reason I'm here, is because this church was already living that way. And so me and my wife and our family, we joined here because we believe that. But the rest of the church was not. And so we've been kind of just doing this, hoping people wouldn't come at us. But now we're able to minister freely for sure. But listen to what Frederick Dale Bruner, I was reading through the Beatitudes, and I was reading some of his commentary, and he connected these two things so good. I just wanted to read it to you. He says this. He says, yet the promises of Jesus' Beatitudes are universal. They have no explicitly Christian or ecclesial, that means church, conditions or specifications. They are extraterritorial and immense. We must let Jesus reach wherever he wants. To all miserable, grieving, powerless, and justice-hunted persons. That's the first 4 Beatitudes. And to all merciful, pure, peacemaking, and persecuted persons as well. Those are the last 4. And these Beatitudes tell us that Jesus will reach these people whether we want him to or not. Jesus saves. Is that good? Is that good? And so listen, there's no qualifiers. The Beatitudes aren't, blessed are the poor in spirit if they've said my name at an altar sometime. That's not it. It's just blessed. They're just blessed, the poor in spirit, the mourn, those who mourn. It's not if you say the right prayer, if you go to the right church. No, Jesus is for, God is for the mourners, right? There's no qualifiers. God is simply after people that the world has disregarded. And so we should be after people that the world has disregarded. And so I'll leave you with this poem by Karen Kaiser. Louder. If the worst thing you can say about us is that we embrace everyone and are upfront about it, then over and over a refrain of reception offered to the masses. Your reason for leaving is our most desperate plea that all may know without question, without exception, that they are welcome here. So say it again, louder this time, so everyone can hear. I'm here for it, church, and I know you are too. God bless.